Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We're now in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things for folks in San Diego County, whether it's food insecurity, it's financial literacy, it's the symphony, it's you pick a topic, they're involved in stuff. We are so honored to have a true community icon in the studio with us today, Katy McDonald. She is the president and CEO of Forever Balboa Park. Katy, how you doing?
I'm doing great, but I think icon's a little strong.
It is definitely not strong enough. What's amazing, because my listeners know that I'm 105 years old, I cannot believe we've never met before because I worked with her unbelievable mom, Judy McDonald, who was a force in so many different areas. And, you know, bless her heart and rest her soul and all that business. And it just makes me smile. And there's no question you've got so much Judy in you, as you know.
Well, thank you. That is a high compliment. I was a very lucky kid growing up with Judy as my mother and Alex as my father. I had a deep appreciation for education and family and community from the day I was born.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing, and obviously it oozes out of you just having a few minutes chatting with you, and of course it was in the DNA of your mom and dad, and that is trust, it's connection, it's collaboration. How about this word, empathy? That seemed to go the way of the dodo bird. We need to get the dodo bird back in our region, all the things that are just really close to you. So when did you get the gig at Forever Balboa Park?
So I started in November of last year. So it's been, 7.5 months now. Most of the time it feels like 7 months. Sometimes it feels like 7 years, but it's been absolutely fantastic and very, very interesting.
Yeah, we've been working with Forever Balboa Park when the merge happened, with those two groups, and of course, and you cannot talk about Balboa Park enough. It's our treasure. We better take care of it. Of course, that's what you know, and that's what you're doing as well. Chat about the mission of Forever Balboa Park.
Well, you are absolutely right that Balboa Park really matters to San Diego. And in the end, that's why I took this job. You know, I had 10 glorious years at the San Diego Symphony, working with Martha Gilmer, who came from Chicago. Leaving there was not an easy thing to do after we accomplished a whole variety of different things. But just in the back of my head, and actually I heard my mother talking to me at different times, Balboa Park really, really matters. It matters to the history of San Diego. It matters to what life is like now in San Diego, and it really matters to the future of San Diego. So although it is a very complicated place, it has so much opportunity. I mean, there are no other cities in the whole country that have 1,200 acres in the center of their urban core that we can create cultural experiences and experiences with nature, with more opportunity for new. So we have a huge opportunity and a big task in front of us.
Yeah, and you know, for those folks who take it for granted, because you just get to Balboa Park and it's, you know, nice and it's got this great flora, some fauna, I guess, running around and all that business, and of course the wonderful museums, and those museums are not just in Balboa Park; they're spread out throughout this region, as you well know. It's something that is just remarkable. A lot of great events, of course, come in there. Talk about, I think one of the things I think the audience would love to know is that there are a lot of different organizations that, work in Balboa Park. Certainly we know the museums, of course,
Absolutely.
and all that. But there are other museum things that deal with Balboa Park as well. Talk about some of the groups you work with.
Yeah. So let's go to the basics, right? So the Balboa Park is owned and operated by the city of San Diego, right? But it's 1,200 acres of various activities. So you're absolutely right. We've got all the cultural institutions that do a tremendous job of creating great cultural experiences for our citizens. But because it's so big and because it's so vast and because it has such a plethora of assets about it, there are lots of different groups that really care about what happens to Balboa Park. So we work very closely with the Balboa Park Cultural Partnership. Peter Comiskey and his team do a great job of really understanding the needs of those cultural institutions. And then, of course, there are organizations like the Committee of 100 that have been around for many, many years and have deep knowledge of Balboa Park and also do raise money and do planning projects to enhance specific projects within the park. But as you know, one of the great things about Forever Balboa Park is that is the coming together of two organizations. And, one of the challenges of Balboa Park is also one of its greatest assets, right? So many people love it, and there are a lot of organizations. But I think what was the Balboa Park Conservancy and the Friends of Balboa Park, they realized that they were going to be stronger together.
That's right.
And if we could have a shared agenda and get those strong minds and commitments together, we would be able to be much more effective for the park itself and obviously for the visitors to the park.
Yeah, and that's not an easy chore. I have to tell you that because you're doing this right now and in this area because people's hearts are usually in the right way. Sometimes the activities don't always necessarily match that in the hearts and all that, and there's just so much of a footprint as you're managing, not just literally geography, but mentally as well, philosophically as well, and so far as much. What would you say is surprising you the most about the job you've been in this short time? Or has anything surprised you? This has pretty much been exactly what you thought it would be.
Absolutely. Not what I expected it was going to be, precisely.
Okay.
I think, well, first of all, I went into the job kind of believing that I knew a lot about Balboa Park. I grew up in San Diego. I did art in the park when I was a little girl. I have a picture of myself that was in the UT actually a long time ago when I was 11 years old.
Oh, nice.
Painting a mural in front of what is now the Museum of Us. So I thought I had a decent sense of what was going on. But I think what surprised me the most is the history. Do you know that it was in 1868 that the city leaders set aside what was then 1,400 acres of land in the center of the city, right? And it wasn't even a full. It's the center of the city now. It was the land up on top of the hill then.
That's
1868 right. With about 25,000 people living in town. To set aside that land was so foresightful of the people that cared about the city and knew that had a huge, huge future in front of it. So that was really moving to me because, I'm fascinated by cities. And in the end of the day, what I really am fascinated by is what makes an interesting city. And those people so long ago realized that San Diego was going to be a place that grew. It was going to be a place that drew a lot of interesting people. And to set aside this land knowing that people in an urban environment were going to need the respite of nature, but also the spirit of cultural institutions. That foresight is something that I hope we can use to inspire ourselves now. So that's been kind of the greatest surprise.
Yeah, and that reason why I'm smiling when you mentioned 1868, that was the year the San Diego Union was formed.
You're kidding. I did not know that.
In Old Town.
Wow.
And if you go to Old Town, you'll see the very first printing press of the Union, a one-pager,
wow.
1868.
Wow.
And so, and again, we used to always sort of talk about both of those. We're chatting with Katy McDonald. She is the president and CEO of Forever Balboa Park. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by the very, very cool folks, Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County. I mean, you guys, we can talk about projects you're doing between now and 15 years from now and only hit 1/10 of them. But talk about the Botanical Building and the Gardens.
Yeah.
That beautiful place there.
Thank you for giving us the chance to talk about that.
Of course.
This has been the signature project of what was the Balboa Park Conservancy and the Friends, now Forever Balboa Park. They knew 15 years ago that this was going to be the kind of complete renovation that would demonstrate the potential of having a private, nonprofit entity working closely with the city, and it turns out the state, thanks to Tony Atkins, to do important big projects in Balboa Park. So that Botanical Building is one of 4 buildings that were intended to be permanent in Balboa Park. So this is the other thing I learned, that there were only 4 buildings that were intended to be permanent: the Botanical Building, the Oregon Pavilion, the California Tower, and the Laurel Street Bridge. Everything else was intended to be temporary. So for them to pick this project as their first signature project made a lot of sense. So it was built in 1915 as part of the Panama California Exposition. It was created to demonstrate that exotic plants, subtropical plants, could come to San Diego and be successful. And it is a statement, I think it's a statement now about what an incredible climate we have and how so many different kinds of plants can grow. But maybe even as important, I think the kind of respite that you get when you walk into that building is just incredible. The redwood slats create this great lighting sense, and the misters that have been included in the improved Botanical Building keep the humidity at the right level. So you walk in and people just take a deep breath when they go in there.
I always look at this as sort of an area. San Diego, we have a lot of environmental groups on our show, our Spotlight show, because San Diego is this unbelievable nature land. And we got desert, we got ocean, we got mountains, we got everything. But you go to the Botanical Garden and you go, man, there is a lot of different species here in X, Y, and Z. And maybe it's a microcosm of what we actually have in our county. I don't know or not. But it is a great spot. And I think what's also cool about this, before we talk about, the bread and butter of what you guys do, and those are the volunteers, is that it's a place where the great-grandparents are bringing their great-grandkids and so forth. And people have just been enjoying it for years and years and years. Talk about how important that is, because now, the Botanical Gardens are built back up here in that building. Are people bringing back their families and saying, when I was a little kid, I used to come here?
Well, yes, it's absolutely right. The Botanical Building is a place. So first of all, a couple things about the Botanical Building. The plants that were originally put in there came from subtropical areas, right? They were not indigenous to San Diego.
Right.
So when we reopened the building in December of last year, people said, well, these aren't exotic plants. These are plants that we see all the time. Well, of course that's true because they've been so successful in San Diego. So what was exotic in 1915 now is part of the regular flora of the region. So it's kind of an interesting. It worked. We were able to prove that these plants did so well. But to your point about families, one of the beautiful things about Balboa Park is that it is a park for everybody. And when you walk up and down El Prado, you see what San Diego is. You see people of all ages. You see people from all over the county. It's one of those places where everyone feels like they've got a spot. We are estimating that about 3,000 people a day walk through the Botanical Building, which gives you a sense of how attractive it's been to people. And it's free, of course, which is part of what the city and Forever Balboa Park have been committed to have another area of beauty that's free in the park is a big goal of ours.
It always amazed me coming from Los Angeles area, and I've been in San Diego for 1 billion years now.
Not a billion.
Maybe close to 1 billion. But the bottom line is you can sit there, get to Balboa Park at 11 o'clock, which I don't consider too early. Plenty of places to park, especially on a weekend, and walk around and have fun, and it doesn't cost you anything. You park in the Oregon Pavilion or wherever the case may be, and you're in this unbelievable area. I think, to your point, the uniqueness of having that aspect is terrific. When we come back from break, Katy, I want to talk about the volunteers, which are near and dear to your heart,
absolutely.
Of course. And that some of the challenges got to raise funds. Last I checked, money doesn't grow on trees. If there's
I don't know. I'm looking to plant one of those, Drew.
If you can do it, can I be the second one in line to pluck something off of that? And then, Katy, we always save some time in the second half of our Spotlight show for what can our listeners do to support your efforts? Obviously, volunteer, contribute, donate, everything in between. When we return with Katy McDonald, President and CEO of Forever Balboa Park, I'm Drew Schlosberg, Cloudcast Media. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
We are right back with Katy McDonald. She is the president and CEO of Forever Balboa Park. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, nation's longest running community podcast. We're in our 19th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed Credit Union. 60 plus years is doing great things in San Diego County. Right before break, we were just talking about, maybe I'm using the wrong word, bread and butter, but volunteers certainly make Balboa Park go, run, and do everything.
There's no question about it. So we have, at Forever Balboa Park, we have over 400 volunteers now who do everything from trim plants, weed, plant trees, water trees, monitor trees to make sure that they're healthy. They work in the visitor center. They work in the Botanical Building now. They are what makes Forever Balboa Park able to really help the city of San Diego. And to give you an idea of the impact of these volunteers, last year the city of San Diego through Parks and Rec was able to allocate $14 million to the upkeep, just the basic maintenance of Balboa Park, which is not enough, by the way, but that's another conversation we can have.
We will.
But our volunteers contributed the value of $1.2 million. So when you that's about 8% of the $14 million, which tells you the power and the impact that volunteers can really have. But the other thing that's so great about the volunteers is that by talking to them and by listening to their stories, that it really matters to them. They know that they're making a big impact in the park and therefore a big impact in the city. And I think this is kind of where we are as a society. I think now I think increasingly we've got to realize that we are individually responsible for how to make our communities what we want them to be.
You're spot on, and you said it earlier. This is our park.
It's our park. That's exactly right.
It's our park. I mean, and you wouldn't think about doing goofiness to your home. Hopefully you wouldn't be thinking about doing that or your backyard. This is your park. You can make it as great as you want to be. And as you said, there's great opportunities for new stuff. You guys are always thinking about that. Innovation, getting the school kids, that's a whole nother conversation we can have in that area. What do you folks need? I know there's some underfunding of different projects. That's not a new thing. And it's serious stuff, is it not?
Oh, there's no question about it. So part of the dilemma is, as we started this conversation, that the city of San Diego owns and operates Balboa Park. There is never going to be enough money that is allocated from the general fund of the city of San Diego to do what Balboa Park needs. We can't even keep up on the day-to-day maintenance.
That's right.
Not to mention the estimating $500 million of deferred maintenance on the various buildings in the park. Not to mention dreams we all have about creating some new and exciting additions or amenities to the park. So funding is a critical piece of this. Forever Balboa Park is committed to thinking about earned revenue in the park. We also run the visitor center. We manage the House of Hospitality. We also have that spectacular carousel, the wonderful carousel that was built in 1910, 115 years old now. So how can people help? I think most importantly, way down deep, everyone needs to realize that the future of the park is dependent on us. And so to have a sense of that opportunity of the park, but also the responsibility of really helping the park is, I'm hoping, something that all San Diegans are going to understand. So how can you do that? One is we have lots of needs for volunteers. So we would love it if people are interested in volunteers. You can come to the Forever Balboa Park website and sign up to be a volunteer. There are also tremendous opportunities, obviously, for funding. We fund the general operations of the Forever Balboa Park team. We're a very small team, but we're a mighty team because everyone's so devoted. But we do have a capital campaign underway now. It's a $10 million campaign. We're $7 million into it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That is helping to, it helped to kind of start the Botanical Building project and then came in at the end. And now we are building 9 spectacular gardens around the Botanical Building.
Nice.
And we're reconstructing the original 9-bay pergola that was taken down sometime around World War II. We don't know exactly when it was taken down, but we're going to restore that to its beauty. And there are lots of ways to be helpful there. There are ways you can put your name on the pergola, Drew. I think the Drew pergola seems like that would be a really lovely addition to our city, actually.
I thought you wanted people to come to the park.
But then there are also tiles. And so there's a way.
Right.
There's a way, if your family would like to be acknowledged, we can certainly do that. But also it's just a great way, kind of in your heart of hearts, to know that you've done something for your fellow citizens in San Diego.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And you know this, having been in the world of the symphony and you with your mom and dad. And we've been talking about this for the 19 years I've been doing this podcast, is that there's no such thing as too small of a donation.
Correct.
There really is not. Or such little time to volunteer. If you can only volunteer 1 hour a week, a month, that will take 1 hour, because maybe it's 2 hours next week. If you can only give $5, fine,
absolutely
beautiful.
Right.
But now you're a new donator and a new contributor to it. Who knows? Maybe next month you do 10, or whatever the case may be, on this aspect of it. So, I mean, obviously, this hits the spirit of what we really need to do. Talk about the upcoming paid parking initiative.
Yes. Well, we were having such a nice conversation, Drew.
Well, I mean, but listen.
No, it's a really interesting situation, right? And
we have to talk about it.
We absolutely have to talk about it. The city has considered paid parking in Balboa Park for a long time. I think they always knew that it was going to be a complicated implementation.
Right.
The city doesn't have the resources to pay for the upkeep of public institutions and public spaces in the city. So they're coming up with every possible way to do that. So Forever Balboa Park wishes we did not have to charge for parking. That is not what we think creates the atmosphere and the accessibility so that everyone feels a part of the park. But we also know the reality that the city faces. So we've been working with the city. They've been very open to conversations with us. They want to make it as palatable for the institutions. So BPCP and the Committee of 100 and Forever Balboa Park have been a part of those conversations. So the most important thing for us has been to make sure that our volunteers, people who give of their time and their heart to Balboa Park, can continue to park for free.
Right.
And that there continues to be some kind of free parking in the park. And the city is committed to us that there is going to be some free parking in the park. It may be a little farther away than you're interested in parking, but there is going to be some free parking.
Well, I mean, listen, it is something that $500 million in deferred
That's exactly
maintenance.
Right.
You love this park. Money doesn't grow on trees, what we talked about. And you're doing the right thing. We're going to make it as palatable as possible, free for volunteers, free for those folks who maybe can't afford to do this. But if we don't do this, we're going to see some crumbling. Already are seeing some crumbling.
We are seeing some crumbling. And I think we have to, this is happening all over, right? I think we're going to have to think about how we fund our communities in different ways. And we've got to be creative about it.
Right.
So the city has committed that this money will come back to Balboa Park.
Great.
Now, what I'd really like them to commit to is that they'll continue to fund Parks and Rec at the same level, and that this parking revenue won't just decrease that allocation. But we'll fight for that.
And you will, right?
But it's we have to think about things in a different way.
Yeah.
And funding. There is deep need for funding if we're going to keep this park at the level that is the amazing international tourist draw that it is, and that it meets the needs of our growing San Diego region.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things, I know a concern, will it maybe curb access to the park because now there's some paid parking on it. Hopefully that's not going to happen. There are other ways to get to the park, as we all know, transit and so forth in that area. Because of the 3.3 million people living in San Diego County, maybe it's 3.4 now, you're probably more on top of that than I am. We want every single one of them to come to that park, but maybe not at the same time, of course, in that area. And again, it's beautiful. What I'd love to do is organizations like yours, we want to have you on consistently on our Spotlight show. So if you're willing, we'd like to have you and all the 4 billion topics you talk about come on at least once a quarter. And I mean, you could line up enough topics between now, once a quarter, until 2096. So if you're interested, we haven't even touched base on some of the other things. So bring in some of your constituents and say, this is the next huge thing we need to work on. If you're interested,
I would be thrilled to do that, because Balboa Park, as I said at the beginning, it totally matters to San Diego. And I'll go back to one of your original questions about what I didn't know. I think very few people really understand how Balboa Park continues to function. And I think if we peel back the layers of the onion and really understand that the park only gets X amount of money from the city, and then it's not generating any money for itself, I think people might be more open to making it their own and contributing to make it the park we know it can be.
Yeah, and I know you've already probably thought about 17 different campaigns to get that message across in that area. But you're right, it's real. It is here. It is. And if we don't contribute, we don't volunteer, we cannot continue in this path. We know that. Any final comments?
I guess I would also just remind everybody, as I remind myself, that we are the lucky ones to live in this spectacular city, right? Between the ocean and the mountains and our natural topography, and then the leadership of these amazing civic thought leaders in 1868 to set aside that land. So the question is now, what do we want to make of it? So it's a trying time out there in the world, but I'm really focused on what can we do together as a community to invest in the park and invest in creating the city that we want to live in.
And the only way to do that is to keep it in the light of the public. You have to talk about it today, tomorrow, all the time. That's the world you come from, with the symphony and, of course, with your wonderful parents. Katy McDonald, what an absolute pleasure. Cannot believe we've never met before. That is almost impossible. But knowing that you'll be coming on as a frequent guest and bringing in whoever else you want to continue talking about all the great initiatives you're doing at Forever Balboa Park, we're going to be honored to have that.
Look forward to it, Drew. Thanks so much.
You bet. Katy McDonald, she's the president and CEO of Forever Balboa Park. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. I've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.